Hello and welcome. I'm Ilgar Zarbaliyev, and on behalf of some product, Microsoft, the MVPs, and other technology experts, welcome to Excel Virtual Global 2025. And remember, it's for charity. Now you may have looked around our website already, but I'm not sure. You have notes all the words, so let me take a moment to run a few past you. Microsoft's most valuable professionals, or MVPs, are technology experts who passionately share their knowledge with the community. They are always on the bleeding edge and have an unstoppable urge to get their hands on new, exciting technologies. This virtual conference, now in its 11th year, presents Excel, data platform, and PowerPoint MVPs, together with other acknowledged experts from Microsoft and or around the globe to present, answer questions, and demonstrate the future of Excel and how it will make your life easier, both personally and professionally. Most sessions will be recorded, so you may watch them later with downloads aplenty. There are no medals for staying up to watch the entire event live. From your own favorite chair, bring a laptop and an inquisitive mind and your sense of humor. Be prepared to learn heaps. And remember, it's for charity. The presenters have all kindly donated their time to make these as informative and entertaining an event as possible. Therefore, we would be grateful if you could make a donation to a charity of your choice and advise us in US dollars how much you pledged, as we would love to keep track and keep you updated. This is an honest thing. Whatever you do, it will simply be between you and your consciousness. So, if you would like to tell us what you have actually donated, please could you use the QR code on the screen now or type in the bit.ly link at the bottom. Remembering it's case sensitive, that's bit.ly/EVG2025 charity. Thanks for listening and enjoy Excel Virtual Global 2025.
Right. Hello, everyone. I have Ian here with me. So right now, he will present a new section on what generative AI mean for financial modeling. This examines how emerging technology are transform the tool, the skill, and the process that define the future of finance and decision making. So a bit about Ian. So Ian is who lead the PwC dealing modeling business in Australia and globally. He had more than 25 years of professional financial modeler. Ian had built and reviewed model underpinning the major transaction infrastructure project, the BAU forecasting and finance transformation across Australia and the UK. He was part of the inaugural cohort of the Financial Modeling Institute Master of Financial Modeling (MFM) program and now it serves as its advisory board. Ian also previously sat on the advisory board for the FAST standard, having shaped the best practice for the global modeling community. So back to you, Ian.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sam. Just checking you can hear me, Sam.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Great. And just checking, we've got a full hour up until, 5 o'clock my time.
Yeah, so you got around like 40 to 50 minutes. Section, yeah. Around
Right.
50 minutes, yeah.
Very good. And one last question, because I didn't ask before. Is it easy for those watching this session to ask questions?
Yes, so they can use it by the Q&A. So they can use the Q&A and then they send a question to you. Then, yeah.
Brilliant. And so I know some people will be watching this back afterwards, but if you are watching this live and you have any questions, then please use that Q&A feature. It'd be great if this was a discussion. I'm not here to flick through PowerPoints. Well, I am going to flick through PowerPoints, but I'm not here just to do that. I'm super keen to get your questions. And if we get sent off in other wonderful directions, then that would be fantastic. So I'll put up some slides. Hopefully this will work. Oh, no, that's not right. Try again, Ian. Okay. So Sam there, just checking you can see those slides.
I was sending them live right now. I had some technical issue on my side. Sorry about that. James, can you help me send Ian screen out live? Okay, thanks. Good.
There it is. Just checking whether or not that will then move the slides forward. No, it won't. I'll need to switch to this screen, I think. There we go. You can see me and everything's still okay. I can't see you guys anymore because I'm looking at the slides, but hopefully that will still be fine. So, hi everybody. Thank you very much for joining this session. When first asked about presenting today, I joked that I'm sure everybody was doing something on AI, and so I should do something different, but actually heard that very few people were doing something on AI. Now, nonetheless, I'd be astounded if AI wasn't mentioned in almost every session that has been going on at this conference. But here's an opportunity to just talk specifically around that, and I hope that we can explore in a little bit of detail how I see and how we see GenAI in the world of financial modeling. I've got a few things I want to go through, but like I said before, I'm keen to hear from you. So a little bit about me. So I'm a professional financial modeler. That's an important distinction for me. That in the Venn diagram world, there are people with Excel skills. There are then people with financial modeling skills, and then there are people who are professional financial modelers within that. So we all have financial modeling skills, but not all people with financial modeling skills are professional financial modelers. I've made this my profession, and it's been quite a while. I've been a professional financial modeler for over 25 years. I've been here in Australia for 15 years, leading the team here, which is my great privilege. And I'm also the global financial modeling leader for PwC. I'm hoping that some of that experience, etc., is going to be valuable. But also I'm conscious that I am not of the most modern generation in this world, and need to be challenged by those that have newer ways of thinking. And I hope there'll be a balance of that. As mentioned, I'm a master financial modeler, which was a wonderful privilege to be one of those, I think, original 7 folk when that was first inaugurally presented. And at the bottom there, you can see I'm currently studying an AI strategy course. So some of that executive education is playing into this session as well. So what is a financial modeler? So, this is about Excel, this conference. So let's talk specifically about financial modeling. So I asked ChatGPT. I told it I was doing a presentation in a conference, and I wanted it in 150 words or less to describe a financial modeler, and this is what it came up with. It says it's a translator between numbers and decisions, someone who turns complex business questions into clear, structured, and insightful analysis. Financial modelers use their technical, commercial, and communication skills to help organizations see the financial impact of their choices and plan with confidence. Beyond spreadsheets and formulas, financial modelers connect people, data, and decisions. They collaborate, challenge assumptions, and bring together diverse skills and perspectives to build models that reflect real-world dynamics and human priorities. Ultimately, a financial modeler's work is about understanding what success means to our stakeholders and our clients, their goals, their concerns, and their vision for the future, and creating tools that bring that understanding to life through clarity, credibility, and insight. Now, I think we already know that this was built by ChatGPT because of the long hyphens you see in there. That's a ChatGPT feature, an easy thing to spot whether somebody has sent you something that they just got out of ChatGPT. Do I agree with this? Yeah, I do agree with almost all of this. And I think the really important distinction it's making is that a financial modeler is not a person necessarily who sits in a room on their own and builds a technical spreadsheet from start to finish. I know that's what we do in a FMI, Financial Modeling Institute exam. We get asked to build a spreadsheet, we build a spreadsheet, we hand it over. That is that's not a real world situation at all, and it's not what a financial modeler does. Financial modeler always has other stakeholders, always has to work with others. This is a really important grounding to the conversation we're having today. And what do those financial modelers do? Largely speaking, they do 2 things. They review models, that's our model audit, checking the integrity of a model, and they build models and modern Excel tools. Now, I'm not going to speak much about how the world of the financial modeler has really evolved over the last few years, such that it extends way beyond traditional Excel grid and into Power Query, Power Pivot, Power Automate, Power BI. I'm not going to talk about that, but understand that that is all part of being a financial modeler. I'm just going to flick back to the chat and just check sure that if people are putting things in the Q&A, I every now and then flick back into that. Or Sam, if you or James, if you see any questions, then feel free to jump in and interrupt me. So just briefly on model audit, I just wanted to raise this specific point. I received an RFP earlier this week, and this is an extract from the RFP. It requires me, in doing my work and providing a final report to my client, to determine through a cell-by-cell review of the model whether the calculations in the model are in all material respects internally consistent and mathematically correct. I just wanted to show that, because if there's people thinking the future of model audit is an engine which processes a model and provides a risk-based probabilistic insurance policy that people can rely on, although that might be effective in some markets, it will not meet the criteria that is set by this particular RFP, and that is quite common. So we do need to be aware of what is required by organizations when we do these services, and then go on to design AI solutions. Now, this may change in the future, and governments may require or be more comfortable with a more probabilistic or artificial intelligence type of sign-off. But for now, they're a little bit more traditional in their thinking. So I've been at a number of conferences and talked at length about how financial modeling is a human endeavor. And I have to overemphasize that point today. The real measure of success, the true success, is the model adoption. Your client, the user of the model, the person in your own organization or the person in the organization you're working with, adopts the model favorably. That the handover is one where there's a loving transfer of ownership. It's not just sending a spreadsheet. You're not just measured on the technical accuracy of the spreadsheet. People want to embrace and trust and rely on your model. Ultimately, that is shaped by human connection. So models are built for people, by people, for people. They're not just spreadsheets. And if we're going to embrace AI, we must understand this first, and then build tools to enhance, to augment, and to support that process. Because if we miss that step, we will not take our stakeholders on the journey with us. We may be technically brilliant or rapid, but that will be of no real value in the long term. Just quickly, let's talk about those two things we do. We build, we have a process. In the model audit process, you start a project, you do a review of the model, the client updates the model, you get another version, client updates the model, so on, final report. Pretty standard, that's the methodology. In the model build process, it could be a little bit like the top right corner there, a little bit iterative, but broadly speaking, it goes scope, specify, design, build, review, and handover. That is the process that we've deployed, the two methodologies that we deploy hundreds of times every year in our team in Australia. And importantly, and I'll come back to this, but many of you will have heard me say this many times before, that we spend 40% of the total project time before we start to build the model. I'll say that again. If I have 2 weeks to build a financial model and hand it over to a client, then I am not starting to build that model until Friday of week 1. Because the first 4 days of that project will be spent scoping, specifying, and designing. This is not a theoretical concept that we deploy from time to time or that we espouse in training. This is literally what we do with our clients. And this is really important to talk about, whether it's a transaction or a more corporate model. We're going to deploy this kind of timeline. So I'll show you that again I want to point out that the greatest potential for AI is here, both in terms of model review and model build, and then within model build of all of those things for the financial modeling world, scope and specification is where the greatest potential for AI is. And I need to call that out because, and maybe some of you saw this on LinkedIn last night, I went back and saw an interview that I did with Giles Mail about 18 months or so ago, where I predicted how GenAI would impact on financial modeling. And broadly speaking, I've been about right. There's been a lot more innovation, and we can talk about that in a minute. But what I didn't know was where it would have the main impact. I thought it would probably be in the review aspects of financial modeling, and I think I was wrong. I think it's going to have, I was distinguishing between build and review in the model build phase. I thought that it would be mostly used to review what was being built. But I actually think the biggest impact is going to be in specification. That's kind of dull. Maybe you were hoping to join this presentation and hear how the greatest opportunity for AI and financial modeling is going to rapidly develop your financial models. I honestly don't believe that's where the greatest opportunity is. I believe it is in the specification phase. Okay, let me just talk about what that detail is. Just give a background here still. If I'm going to do a model build, there's a lot of people involved. Maybe not quite as many people as these, but maybe these go on to represent different types of tasks, different types of skills that are involved. We have hierarchy. The people at the top are the more experienced people, maybe people like myself, the directors in my team, maybe they're 15-year financial modelers or 10-year financial modelers. Not all of them 25-year financial modelers like myself, but they're still very experienced. And then as you work down, there might be 5-year experienced financial modelers, 2-year, 1 year. Maybe they're really good at reviewing models. Maybe they're really good at developing the data side of models. Maybe they're really good at building the corporate finance side of models or the debt aspects. Maybe they're really, really good at the working capital and the accounting aspect. But there's a collection of skills, and these are all necessary. So I'm making the point here that when you think about how you target the development of a model, you don't just think build model, because the tasks that are involved are spread across many people, and they are not just the technical aspects, not just what the analyst does. They are critically spread across lots of different people with different types of experience. So if I look at a model, the reviewer of a model build, so that's a junior person reviewing the model, there's a lot of steps. So we think of it, that's the junior person doing the review. So now I've broken it down to the review section, and I've looked at the junior person within that. And I'm saying, well, one of the tasks they do is review it. That's not a task. The task is the 100 subtasks they do within that. They manually navigate to a formula. They analyze that formula. They understand what that formula is doing. Then they cross-check that formula's intent with their understanding. Then they go on to document any findings they have from that. They review those findings. They share those findings with someone else. Someone else gives them feedback. They review that feedback. Finally, that finding is shared with someone else. It's a long process with many, many tasks. And even that is simplifying it. There are many tasks within that as well. If you think about a model audit where someone is reviewing a model, those tasks are being repeated hundreds of times a day, because an individual modeler might be reviewing over 500 formulae in a single day. And so they're going to repeat that process many, many times. So the opportunities for efficiency are definitely there, but you have to get down to that subtask. Equally, let's talk about that specification phase again. So in the specification phase, this is when we are, we call it the pursuit of the removal of ambiguity. We are seeking to understand without ambiguity what the model should do, its structure, its design, everything about the model. We use workshops, we use driver trees, we use prototype models, we use calculation tables, we document the assumptions and the limitations. A whole bunch of different things are prepared in the pursuit of the removal of ambiguity, and that requires lots of different skills with different levels and volumes of experience coming together to allow us to do that. And we need to target each of the individual tasks that those people are doing. And here you can see again a representation of the many, I can't even begin to list all the subtasks that will be part of that process. The reality is many of those tasks are quite menial. And we don't like to admit this. And maybe this is something you're prepared to put in the Q&A or comment on in the Q&A. But the truth is that in all of our jobs, and I would include mine in that, there are components that we do, we almost embrace, which we see as part of the value we create, which are in reality quite menial. Sometimes we need a bit of a brain break, and so we do those menial tasks. Sometimes it's about processing some sort of admin process or doing some, in our world, a risk management step or a documentation step. But then honestly, someone else would be better placed doing that task. We have to admit that quite a lot of our work is pretty menial, because once we do that, we start to see where the opportunities are for automation and using AI. So let's zoom in one more time into this specification area because of all that manual work. So for example, it can translate requirements. AI can summarize and structure language. So if we transcribe a meeting using Teams' native transcription feature, then it can start to document what those requirements are. If we have spent some time defining assumptions, AI can validate those against the meeting transcripts that we've had in the meeting. If there's an outline of structure, maybe it's just on a whiteboard where we've designed and thrown, iterated some things up, could be a virtual whiteboard, but often it's a physical whiteboard. AI can draft the draft model logic diagrams from that. And when we've clarified and documented all the scope, we can sort of surface some inconsistencies. I might talk about that use case in a bit more detail in a minute. I'll just pause briefly, checking whether anybody has any questions or anything at this point.
We had a small question from the chat at the moment, and we publish it. So what is your opinion on the agent mod from Excel app, which help us build the entire model with just a simple prompt?
So I'll absolutely cover that. I'll cover a collection of things which are currently in the market. Agent mode being one that, so for those of you who don't know, that was released about a week and a half ago, maybe. It's available in the web only. And we understand that's likely to be the only place it will ever live. And it has been tested a little bit, but in a relatively limited way because it's not available to everybody. I think you have to have Copilot. I think you need to be in the beta channel. I think you have to have the advanced beta labs installed. So there's a few things to get there, but if you can get it and test it, which I personally haven't, but I've seen some of the testing, it then allows you to use natural language to instruct Excel to perform certain tasks. So it's the first time we've had that sort of natively inside Excel, and I will come back to that. Was there anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay, so we will come back to those sorts of things. So let's just, although I mean, yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. So let's think more about sort of those specific use cases and where the opportunities, I believe, genuinely are, because I'm strongly encouraging everybody who are financial modelers to think about these sorts of use cases. So again, in the world, if you're into model review, an issues pre-review is a no-brainer. We've already implemented this in our organization. You're a junior person, you spend a lot of time reviewing someone else's model, whether it's an internal review, whether it's a review of your mate's model, whether it's a formal review. And before you send those issues to anybody else, you ask your AI agent to do a pre-review. So just simple things like quality of language, consistency of language, sense check it against our best practice approach for documenting things, check it for terminology, industry terminology, understandability, all those sorts of sort of intelligence checks beyond spell checking that you can readily do, and will just make a better product before you share it with the next person. In a model build sense, again, that pursuit of ambiguity is where I am seeing the most opportunity. So just to go into that one in a little bit more detail, here's some use cases that we currently have going. The top half of this left-hand slide is the process that we used to go through. And the bottom half is the process that we now go through. I won't go into in great detail, but ultimately it was a highly iterative process before. But now, if you can imagine a world where a specification meeting and discussion is being had with transcription enabled, whether that's just in the room with you or whether it's a Teams meeting that you're actually using. And live, you are taking that transcription, feeding it into a pre-prepared prompt to ask it to prepare a summary of that discussion, the outputs and the key drivers, calculation considerations of the financial model. And in particular, we'll develop a first cut of the driver tree for discussion, which can be collectively reviewed by all of the people involved. And this is really different because in the past, it's very iterative. To prepare the information, document it, then go ahead and prepare the driver trees, share those with the person you want to discuss them with. They would then send back their comments. Now, we can do all of that live because we're rapidly preparing these artifacts from the discussions themselves. That's a massive step forward and a huge time saver. We can also use it for validating the specification. We will frequently find that we write a long specification document which has internal inconsistencies, that it contradicts itself at times, that define terms which are really important in lots of complex financial models. I can think of one we've done only last week. Those defined terms aren't consistently used or don't seem to truly capture a calculation flow all the way through. That a calculation flow maybe isn't completely described. It seems to end partway through. We can also ask it to check against industry standards and industry use cases. At that point, you should be able to get a really, really good quality specification much, much faster, which makes the build process so much easier. Now, I should say at that stage, would I then immediately assume, because we haven't talked much about the build phase by design, that I can use AI for that phase? What I would say is if I'm following these phases in this approach, that build phase becomes easier because you have a better quality specification to build from. So it becomes faster by virtue of the AI that you've used in specification. That might mean you don't need AI in the second phase, or it might mean that it makes it easier to use AI in that build phase, but they definitely interact, and I think that's an important distinction. I'll start to talk about some of the other things that are around at the moment. I don't know whether that captures any other questions that came through, or there is a question I see. Can we avoid or minimize AI's hallucination when we ask it to do the summary of our model? Absolutely, you can. You can't guarantee that it won't, though. So there is a lot of nervousness about hallucination, and rightly so. The best example of that being in the Australian press right now, related to another professional services firm, where it hallucinated the sources of research and information, and those sources were then put into a report that was provided to a client. Obviously scary and terrifying for many people. And so those hallucinations are real. And in all the use cases I have talked about, there will be from time to time hallucinations. That is for sure. I'd like to look at that from a slightly different perspective. When I talked about the collective of humans that are involved in developing a financial model, different experience, different roles, different responsibilities. When I started my financial modeling career 25 years ago, if I say casually, there would have been a collection of individuals that I worked with who were of varying quality, like there would be in any organization. And those people had good days and they had off days. So it's not impossible that from time to time they would prepare documents that, or models, or driver trees, which are not being fully thought through, lacked rigor, lacked quality. Potentially even they'd copied over a driver tree from another project that they'd worked on, and that driver tree had references to a completely different client, had references to completely different terminology, different industry. They hadn't been through in detail to update it, and they then presented that for use. In my mind, that is almost exactly the same as something that is developed with a hallucination. it has always been the case that you need to review the work that is produced for you. We have roles and responsibilities within every team, roles and responsibilities within every project to check the work that's being produced. That has not changed. The likelihood of A, poor quality or human error, or B, AI hallucinations, is in my mind just the same. So what we have not changed is our responsibility to check things and to verify things. Maybe we've changed the flow a little bit. So in terms of that, some of those processes and use cases I talked about and I'll go on to talk about, the individual may now be able to self-review their work, but they still need to check what the AI agent is saying and not trust it. They have a responsibility to review it. And then maybe that means that the next piece of work that has to be reviewed is a little bit better quality, but there's still somebody having to review it. So in my mind, there will always be poor quality of work, whether it's artificial or human intelligence that creates it, and the responsibility for review remains. Now, can we limit the amount of hallucination? Yes, I might come on to that in a little minute, but I think we're all getting better at that all the time. It's really down to prompt design. I hope that answers that question. If you have a follow-up question, please let me know. But by the way, we ask AI to summarize models all the time. So, for example, we might upload a model and ask it to summarize all the industry terminology that's in there so that anybody involved in the project immediately understands what all the industry terminology is. Or we might ask it to summarize the structural flow of the model so that we can orientate ourselves really quickly. We might ask it to look at, call out some of the more complex, commercially complex sections. So by the way, this model has a complicated tax section or has a complicated debt section. We can ask it those summaries straight away. So the second we receive a model, so an orientation prompt is a really useful start for any project. And the probability of hallucination still remains in there, but it's a really great way of getting up to speed quickly with the model. It produces an output, just like if I'd asked a graduate to do an orientation summary of the model. Somebody would then need to review what that graduate has done before it's relied upon. Someone needs to review what the AI agent has done before it's relied upon. So again, I feel like it's the same thing, but let me know if I'm missing the point there. So let's have a look at the pace of change. So there is a changing landscape. There are new tools coming in. I'll show a few of those in a second. But I wanted to give you a framework for it. I've already given you one. The first framework is that when you think about the available tools, like the Excel agent that just got released, but also many others, don't just think this is a tool that builds a model. Please don't think that. First framework I've given you. Think about whether you're building a model or reviewing a model, then think about all the individual tasks that you're doing across all the different roles and responsibilities, grades and things, and think about where is the AI tool that can help you with those. And by the way, for many of those, it is not an Excel specific AI tool that will help you. The most valuable AI tools to the financial modeling industry are not Excel financial modeling AI tools. I believe that very, very strongly. They may not even be the Excel agent, because I see the most opportunity in review and specification. Don't really need to be involved in Excel as much. So I think we need to remind ourselves that we live outside of the Excel ecosystem. We are a human endeavor. So that's the first framework. The second framework is, as you think about how you're going to use these tools, you need to think about how they actually create value. That's absolutely critical. So from a business perspective, I've broken it down to the three categories you see on the right-hand side. Can it allow me to create a brand new product and service from which I can sell to the market, that the market will readily buy, that doesn't currently exist today? I might get first mover initiative on that. I might have a tool which no one else has. But is it a new product service, genuinely incremental revenue? Can I enhance my value proposition? That might make me more attractive. It might increase my win rate of work, or it make me more likely someone's going to trust what I do, or it might even lower my cost to serve, and therefore I can be more efficient and I can pass those savings on to my clients. but it has to be valuable to myself and or my client in order for that to be a good opportunity. If the solution and the tool that you're looking at is cool, is wicked, is amazing, is smart, is slay, as my children would say. I really regret saying that out loud. But is really innovative, but doesn't actually create value, it's of no use whatsoever. And then the other way we're thinking about it is a day in the life, and that is just looking at the menial tasks and other tasks, the repeating tasks that people in my team, senior and junior, are doing every day, and just trying to make that better. Some of that is about an enhanced value proposition for my team, just making the day a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit easier, less repetitive, keeps their brain agile, makes them happy at the end of the day. Some of it is about genuine productivity and savings, lowering the cost of what we deliver. But I want you to think about that. So two frameworks when you think about these new tools. One is the actual tasks that we're actually doing. And the second one is, how do we actually make sure it is valuable? And so here are some of those tools. Now I've borrowed this slide, I was given this slide by the FP&A guy, that's Paul Barnhurst. He and two of his mates have called themselves, I think, the Mod Squad or something. That's Ian Schnorr and Giles Mail, two amazing people in the financial modeling profession, just absolute trendsetters and legends. And working with Paul, they are testing all of these tools on our behalf. So honestly, if you want to know how each of these is going to fare, I think the important place to start is the work that they are doing, testing all these on our behalf. They prepared this 2 weeks ago. It doesn't have the Excel agent in it because it's so brand new, but it would equally be on that tool. So they've sort of talked about these, but let's just remember, please, that these are add-ins for and things that will use Excel. So new types of spreadsheets, replacements to spreadsheets, as well as Excel add-ins. Excel is used for, well, a million things more than it probably should be. It runs every finance department in the world. It runs every government department in the world. Its use case, due to its flexibility, is absolutely extraordinary. The third-party tools that are being created are created by people who understand specific examples of those tasks, specific aspects of how Excel is being used. Just because it does a thing in Excel that sounds like what you do doesn't necessarily mean it is what you do. It's really important you understand the enormous breadth that these tools are trying to target. And you need to make sure that you've understood, because no two tasks or the use cases are the same, that these things are actually going to meet your needs. So what do I think about these tools? Well, I think they have enormous potential. I think that they are forcing everybody to think about AI use cases in the way that I've just described at a more rapid pace than we were all expecting. I think that they will prompt the big organizations to think carefully about what their users want. And I think ultimately, many of these tools will be absorbed into the Excel environment by Microsoft. Colloquially, I heard that when the Excel agent was released, at least one, if not two, of the third-party tools that were currently being heavily promoted, and I don't know if they are on that slide that I'm showing you right now, immediately said, well, that's it, we're done. Our use case has been usurped into Excel by the Excel agent, by Microsoft. We no longer have an advantage. And I think that's going to continue to happen. I'm sorry to those great innovators, those amazing startups that have invested significantly in those. I'm hopeful that many of them will continue to thrive because they are driving us forward. They are really important for our industry to push the envelope. And some of them will find an amazing niche and it won't be replicable and people will use it a lot. But many will not. Many will find they're absorbed into the large technology ecosystems that we find ourselves in our organizations. Which is a way of going back to that question originally around the agent mode in Excel Labs. which is the Excel agents and Excel labs, and all of the other tools that are being prepared right now. And I know people have very strong views on this, so I'm going to pause saying any more than that and very much rely on others to test these tools and feedback on individual tools and their potential. Any other questions at this point?
No questions so far.
That's all right. Start thinking about your questions, because we will shortly pause the slides and just have a bit more of a discussion. I'm moving towards my conclusion now. So I'm asked about GenAI all the time, and I'm asked, will AI make financial models redundant? I'm frequently asked that question. Will it make me redundant? Now, this is a question that you shouldn't take lightly. You have to think about this really, really carefully. I'm certain I'm not the only person who reads with great energy when articles are presented on, here are the top 10 professions that are going to be most disrupted by GenAI. And we go there looking to check whether or not we are one of those professions. So far, financial modeling has not been in that list, but that shouldn't mean that we don't think about how it might be replaced. We've got to think about this all the time. A couple of things I need to say as you come to listen to me and trust my judgment. I've been around a while. Yes, that means I have a lot of experience. Yes, it means I've got a lot of knowledge I can use when I consider this question. But it also means I am, old-fashioned. Probably have outdated views. I'm probably not that minded around innovation. I don't know. Whatever your bias is, whatever you want to think, there's no doubt that I have been around for a while. But equally, I really don't want to be accused of being complacent. I have seen complacency in my team, whether that is driven by a head in the sand approach, as in maybe this is coming from my job, maybe it isn't, I just don't want to think about it. Or maybe it's because people are like, I know what I do, there's no way AI can replace me. I've seen that complacency. I don't want to be accused of that. So I'm making sure I'm not being complacent. And I am genuinely extremely excited by the potential. It has fundamentally changed how we think. Our strategy for FY26 is AI first. And AI first is embedded in everything we're doing. We are publishing and operationalizing new ways of using AI in our team once or twice a week. That is a requirement that we have set of our team to embrace these operationalized way. And then beyond that, I know that my team is using it 10, 40, 50 times every single day in their own use cases. While we're operationalizing, they're also using it themselves. And that is brilliant. It has transformed. It will continue to transform in small ways and big ways. But I'd also be a fool to make a cast iron prediction about anything in this world, because the pace of change is so fast. So I need to remind everybody that the vast majority of financial models are not developed by financial modelers. What I mean by that is that if there are tools out there that are going to develop financial models, they will be developed and used by analysts and finance professionals who have financial modeling skills. Their roles are secure. Those financial modeling skills will be useful, but that task will be more efficient because of these tools. But that's not making financial modelers redundant. That's asking the question about whether analysts who have financial modeling skills will be made redundant. Financial modelers are going to be needed to support organizations to develop financial models that they can't develop themselves. An AI tool is not going to bridge that gap of dependency. You need reassurance, comfort, confidence from the third party, whether it is at times a legend of a financial modeler, a sole trader, an individual who's just brilliant at doing this stuff, or whether it's a large team, a structured team like myself, you are going to need other people to support you in that journey. And those people will also to provide independent comfort on the models you're building. So that review process needs to be independent. So there's a space for a profession of sorts in that world. And that will always continue to be the case. And so financial modelers will embrace these tools. They will augment their lives with these tools. They will make their lives better with these tools, but the profession itself will remain because of that core purpose. And maybe you think that's complacent, but for me, having thought about this quite a lot, I can see how that use, that need will continue. And one other aspect, which has been looked at many different ways, is the fact that if we're going to have a financial modeling profession in the future, we need to have an analyst, junior financial modelers today who can move through that process. That is necessary. It's our obligation to ensure that there's always financial modelers coming through. So I don't think they're going to be made redundant. I think the world will change, but the core skills, the core human skills will remain. And I think, that can be paraphrased by saying that in this world, AI won't take your job, your business, but those who use it efficiently will. So we're at risk in terms of the people that are exploiting and using AI. We're not at risk from AI itself. Look, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover, but I'm sure that people will have questions. So I'm keen to take those now and also challenge, right? If people think that sounds a bit complacent or I've fundamentally misunderstood the potential, or if there are other perspectives I've not taken, please raise them. But equally, I hope I've given you some frameworks by where you can think about how you might embrace AI in the world of financial modeling.
Hi, Ian. We had a question for you from the audience. So had your team try this? What is the effort estimate for reviewing an AI build file? And how does that compare with the time spent building actual model?
What is the effort estimate for reviewing AI? So I have not been provided with an AI built model for review. And I haven't tested that because as yet we have not got to a point where we have managed to produce a model where that would be a meaningful test. Now, look, I know that there have been demonstrations, I've seen I've seen videos, and I know that Paul and his team doing the model testing have seen the production of models using AI tools. So I'm sure it's possible. We haven't seen it yet. And so therefore we haven't been in a position where we can actually do that test. Let's try and sort of read between the lines here though. The effort estimate for reviewing an AI built file compared to a human built model. Look, I'm going to say that the models that we get sent for review and audit, we do about 100 model audits a year, vary wildly in quality. Some are built by a collection, one brilliant modeler, one are built by a collection of brilliant modelers, and some are built by a collection of not so brilliant modelers. That can become a bit of a Frankenstein. It can be an awful model, it can be structured terribly. It might have really awful design, inconsistent design, extraneous sections, and any model that's been around for more than a year inevitably has lots of redundancy, large sections of redundant sections in the model. Maybe redundant worksheets are just not used, but often redundant components of a worksheet, so big rows of calculations which are not used, or even worse, redundant logic which is embedded inside formulae but no longer used because the model has moved on. That can lead to a lot of bloating. So a lot of the models we review are bloated. They have a lot of things in them that don't need to be there, and the client's either just aware that it's a bad model and needs help, or is just very unsure how to remediate that because of how embedded in the model the redundancy is. Either way, you end up with big models that are inefficient to review and probably way bigger than they should be. That is highly likely that an artificial intelligence built model will also have those components depending on the quality of the prompt. Some of the third-party tools, that prompt is going to be inside the software. It's part of its smarts. It's part of the way that tool has been built, is that extraordinary quality prompt. Others, we will actually be writing those prompts ourselves, and feeding them into the Excel agent or into other tools. And the quality of the prompt we use will determine how elegant the model is, how much redundancy is there, etc. So my guess is that there will be significant amounts of redundancy in models going forward, just like there is now, whether they be built by artificial intelligence or by humans. But as I said, I haven't actually tested that specifically yet.
Ian, I've actually got a question. Just tapping into that like 25-year experience in financial modeling that you've had. Have you ever seen, an invention quite like this? Like maybe there's Google or something that could like be as impactful as AI is, in the past couple of years and moving forward.
Yeah, but from a technology perspective.
Yeah, just from an impact perspective, how you see financial modeling moving forward, and maybe comparing to, the past 20 to 30 years of new inventions coming in and changing the landscape.
I mean, like I wasn't around when the car was invented, but like I saw the advent of search engines and how that fundamentally changed how we access knowledge, and how that not only fundamentally changed how we access knowledge, but embedded itself in society, became a verb, i.e. Google it, and totally dominated that world until 6 months ago. When 6 months ago that started to drop, and now people don't Google it, they ask ChatGPT to do those searches. And they've got better at asking the questions. They don't just Google 3 words and hope that Google is going to interpret that and bring back an answer. They're going to ask, I want you to search all these different sources and find the best practice on how I can do this. And then they're going to iterate with chat. That's such a better experience. That's transformational, and transformational off what was a transformational change 25, 30 years ago. In the world of financial modeling specifically, well, Excel 25 years ago did look a little different, I can't deny. Not on the face of it was just the grid that it is today. But now modern finance and modern Excel, which we're deploying on a very regular basis for our clients, has a collection of buttons inside Excel which take you to a whole new world. From Excel, I can now access Power Query, Power Pivot, Power BI, Power Automate, all those things. Excel has become a cockpit to all of these other tools. That in itself is transformational and is being embraced by finance departments all over the world, where they no longer want to buy a large system and do a system implementation which overpromises, underdelivers, and they still have to put in spreadsheets to close the gap at the end of the system anyway. They're now just using these end user computing controls in a controlled and sustainable ownership way to solve problems. Yes, it means that there's a lot more spreadsheets, if you like, but in that controlled environment where organizations own them, it means rapid deployment of productivity improvements, micro transformations in their organizations. The power is enormous. That's another transformation that I think is very relevant to us, which has happened only in the last couple of years. So there's no doubt there's significant change happening all the time. Can we keep up with it? I think we do try to. I think keeping up with it is absolutely critical. Not being complacent is absolutely critical. Will we see greater change in the future? Absolutely. One of my favorite phrases is that the pace of change today will never be as slow. The pace of change will never be as slow as it is today. And not, the pace of change will continue to increase, and we'll see continual changes and evolutions. It's pretty exciting, daunting at times, but very exciting.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right that AI doesn't come in and sort of make us all redundant, especially with financial modeling. So yeah, I think you're right in those assumptions. I think AI currently is a bit. It produces mostly hard-coded models. So, like, sort of in your kind of sort of project workflow, how do you use it mostly for that scoping that you said before, or does it bleed also into model building as well?
So best examples of where you actually lead it into that model, an actual formula development, is specific things like, so I never ask it, so I'm not sure whether you know, but if you upload an Excel file to Copilot and ChatGPT, etc., my understanding, I'm not the most technical person, my understanding of it is that it goes into the back of the file, into the XML code, and then it uses Python to manipulate the ones and zeros in the XML file and returns it to you. Now, that's not how we interact with Excel. It's not how Excel is designed to be interactive. One of the interesting things about that is it can make all sorts of interesting quirks happen. So an extreme end makes the model corrupt, won't actually open anymore. In some instances, it makes it bloated. Some instances, it adds a whole bunch of really weird and odd formatting, sometimes behavior changes the model, the things that you wouldn't normally expect that if you interact with Excel in a normal way, get introduced because of the way that GenAI is manipulating that file. So I would never, at the moment, things will change, but I would never ask it to amend a model and then take that back as my live version. But I could say, here's the model I'm developing. In this row and this row, I need a calculation for this particular thing. It's very complex, industry specific. Have a crack at what that calculation should be, demonstrate the logic for me, and I'll have a look. And that might be the first version of that calculation. I then look at that, I understand it, and I might copy and paste that formula into my live version. Equally, if I know exactly what I'm meant to be doing, but the formula is, there's some of those complicated formulas where it's blowing your brain trying to get the logic to line up and all those sorts of things, give that problem to ChatGPT, get it to state what the formula syntax is, copy that back into your Excel model. Sometimes I've used it for prototype models. So I've received very complicated trust documents for funds. There's things like a real estate fund where the investors have extraordinarily complex documents that describe how the fee arrangements are calculated at the onset of the fund, over the life of the fund, and at the end of the fund. I just might upload that and say, all right, have a crack at building a model on this. And as you rightly say, that model might have weird hard-coded formulae and you've got to be very specific in your prompt, and those tools are getting better all the time, and gradually it's getting, but ultimately that first version is quite helpful because it allows me to sort of visualize a lot of text. It basically translates lawyer into accountant for me, and that's a really helpful transformation that gets me started. So all of those things we can use in that build phase, and we are using them, don't get me wrong, we are using them. It's not where I see the biggest bang for buck, but absolutely it's part of our workflow on a daily basis.
Well, that was a very interesting talk, I have to say. Thanks for joining us. I think we only have like 3 minutes left. Maybe like a very quick 1 minute kind of 1 minute assessment on that agent mode. Just quickly.
I haven't tried it. I spoke to a couple of people who have, and there was sort of real frustration that it's in a web environment only. But they were a bit flippant, who uses web? Well, actually, I use web a lot, right? So our workflow now involves web way more than it ever used to. But the complete lack of keyboard shortcuts or at least usable there's 100 reasons why the desktop is such a better experience. I understand why that causes frustration. Does it mean that I can create an Excel file as a starting point? Probably. So those use cases I just described, I'd probably be doing those in the Excel agent for web. That gets me an Excel file in some form. And I'm willing to bet the Excel agent is going to do that in a much more native, intuitive way than some of those third-party tools like ChatGPT, because it's not designed, it doesn't live in Excel. Then I'll download that, open that up in the desktop version, and then get cracking on using that as something that I can actually use in anger. So I can see it's going to have benefit. Do I think I'm going to go into it and upload a specification document and it's going to produce a model which looks like a PwC model that has all of the branding that I would expect, the flow that I would expect, the row heights to be the right row heights, the column widths to be the right column widths, all those things that are really important to my clients, because first impressions of a model, that look and feel, that sense of confidence people get is one of the most important things for a financial modeling professional to achieve. If it can't do half of that, I'll spend the rest of my life reformatting models that it produces. that's a real waste of time. So, you know, we need to, again, look at the individual tasks that we're trying to replace and make sure the tools that we're finding do that. But I'm certain the Excel agent will have a place within that ecosystem.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
well,
you. Yeah, James.
Thanks a lot, Ian. That was a great talk. If you'd like to give feedback on this event,
Just do.
please use the QR code. Your feedback means a lot to us. It allows us to make this event and the videos that we create, you know, better for you. So more informative and better. So please use that feedback code.